What if your trauma isn't your weakness? It's your operating system. What if the habits you hate are actually architecture you built to survive? And what if the real problem isn't in your business, it's the voice in your head running it? Most founders don't fail because of bad ideas, they fail because they secretly hate themselves. That tension, it leaks everywhere, into your hiring, your product, your relationships, your bank account. Now imagine this. Instead of chasing growth hacks, you reprogram the source. A founder who rewrites their inner dialogue daily literally rewires their brain. Systematic self-reconstruction. You can go from chaos, addiction, and debt to building mind hygiene. Not fixing emotions, not suppressing them, accepting them, writing them, rewriting them daily. Because the real leverage isn't capital, it's control over your internal state when everything is on fire. So if your business is a reflection of your mind, is your mind in a position to scale? Welcome to AI for Founders. I'm Ryan Estes. This is for founders who want to build companies without destroying themselves in the process, and anyone curious how emotional mastery becomes a competitive advantage in the age of AI. Go to aiforfounders.co and plug into the signal and sharpen how you think. It's not just what you build. And if this hits you, leave a review like you're leaving a note to your past self before everything broke. Druva, thank you so much for joining me for the podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we've spoken a couple of times before. You're a Denver guy. I'm a Denver guy. We're soon to rub shoulders, I think, sooner or later. And why I'm so excited to have you on the show largely is because, maybe a characteristic of the guests on this show is that a common thread, perhaps, is that they're visionaries. They're looking into the future, they're attaching some kind of like invisible tractor beam to their vision of the future, and they pull themselves into it. And oftentimes, like what happens with visionaries is they will overlook the past, because sometimes the past can be troubling and it can be full of doubts. The future is always shiny, put it that way. And what strikes me so much about your story is how you've harmonized a challenging past, and you've created a very big vision for yourself in the future. So what I'd like to do is just kind of maybe start from the beginning of the story. Now, to bring people up to speed, Druva's a medical doctor. Also, he's not a public speaker, but rather a consecrated self-belief philanthropist who speaks, which I love that. You've developed a process called mind hygiene that might have contributed to your ability to kind of harmonize the past and then reach for this future. So maybe begin, what's a good entry point to your story, Druva?
Imagine a Saturday morning in Juneau, Alaska. You just moved there as an immigrant with the boom in Alaska. The Alaska pipeline in the state of Alaska, money was just flowing. You're waking up on a Saturday morning, getting dressed, going to downtown Juneau, thinking that you're going to just get that next loan. And I'm just going to pay back the next loan. And then hopefully I'll be able to make that money and then we'll be safe. And then my mom is waking up thinking with her hands on her chest, her shoulders, looking up at the popcorn ceiling. Am I going to be yelled at today? Are the Juneau police going to be at home? Am I going to wind up in a domestic violence shelter today? My brother is in his room playing his violin incessantly, having a tough time being made fun of at school that he's gay and he just cannot accept it. And then there I am, who's this kid who's taking all of this hatred in, this resentment, and the different authorities that are coming to our home on a consistent basis. What people call trauma, I've just turned into architecture. And as you can see here, it's where we're talking about harmonizing all of these details of me being abused physically, me being said I'm stupid, my mom is stupid, my brother is stupid, we're all dumb, my dad having a prototypical narcissistic personality disorder, which needs to be differentiated from narcissistic traits. Narcissistic traits typically will have insight into it. Oh, I do blame other people. Oh, I play victim. Oh, I'm condescending. Oh, I say I hate that. Those are narcissistic traits. And there could be some other specifics to it that you may want to consult a psychiatrist about, but narcissistic personality disorder is pervasive, it's constant, and it's this excessive need for admiration. You're better, grandiose thoughts, everybody's wrong, you're victimizing, and you kind of just don't know it. And that's the environment I grew up in. And my mom was schizophrenic, was institutionalized for 27 years. My brother would go on later to be found dead from alcohol and drugs. I would be in juvenile detention several years later, 3 times. And then my family rescued me to go to India. And then I wound up getting 7 scholarships into medical school. Now, you would think this guy got beat. He was emotionally disturbed. His mom is in a psychiatric facility at the moment. His brother is off somewhere doing drugs, trying to figure himself out. And this guy gets 7 scholarships into medical school. Well, here's what happens to a young guy in India who's Indian American. I get exiled to India, if you want to say that, but I think that India saved me. What happens here is that now you develop overconfidence. Now you develop that abrasive, that intrusive, that dismissive tone, that low self-esteem, that low confidence, and the self-hatred. Oh, I went to jail, I'm a doctor. But really, you hate yourself. And then it begins. The self-hatred is pervasive. The narcissistic traits flow easily. People admire you, and you take that admiration in, and you start drowning yourself with quick dopamine hits because that cortisol is constantly high. The amygdala is constantly hijacked. You have that neurobiology of resentment. Let me drink, let me drug, let me eat bad. I gained 60 pounds. I'm actually 220 pounds was my heaviest.
Wow.
That was I'm at 149 pounds today. Wow. And I mean, I had lost up, down, it was up and down. The interesting part is the pictures and videos I have of all of these things. And then slowly what happens is that I start doing, a lot of things happen in between all of that. Then because of this resentment, implicit mind, I hate myself. I'm stupid. I'm dumb, but I'm still good though. Oh, I gotta be strong. Let me control everything. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it, bro. You got this, dog. Just smoke up a little bit. You'll be fine. Let's go grab a drink, man. Hey, forget those guys, man. They don't need you. This was the problem. And that's when November 10th of 2015, around that time, there was a selfie of me in Seattle. So that's what I remember, is when I said, look, I got to figure out a way to emotionally depend on myself. My ex-wife left me. I'm broke, but I pretend I have money. I'm going to be in $300,000 gambling debt here in the next couple of years. I kind of know that, but I don't. 100K in credit card debt. And fast forward a few years later, I'm in a cocaine-induced manic episode, and then I'm going to lose everything. So what happens is that from your childhood, you didn't accept it. You tried to control it. You bought into society's, you got to be strong stuff. Let's be positive though. But what about when you're negative? Oh, don't worry about it. You buy into all of that, and then you have this, and then you try to quiet all of this neurobiology down with dopamine, and those substances lead to you having a rock bottom. And I was out of work for almost a year. And then slowly I start writing, rapping, going to therapy, paying for coaches. And then I realized that I'm developing this emotional scaffolding and depending on myself, what I now call neurospiritual sovereignty. You're going from the fixed mindset to the acceptance mindset to the consecrated mindset. Look, I surrender. I'm never going to want to do whatever it is I need to do to emotionally depend on myself and believe in myself. I'm just going to do it anyway. And I'm just going to keep on doing that, integrate that into the basal ganglia, which is the habit center. You have a habit. Let's say, for example, I didn't want to snort a line of Coke. I didn't want to eat a row of Oreos. I didn't want to go to the store and buy a pack of cigarettes and then buy some chips. I just did it anyway. I knew it wasn't good for me. I just did it anyway. So now I'm going to quit sugar. I'm going to go to the gym and write things down. I don't want to do it. I'll just do it anyway. That's the consecration mindset. And you just keep doing it. And David Goggins speaks to this a lot. And that's where I came up with some of these things, mind hygiene, where you develop that you write it down and then you go from that resentment, implicit bias. Oh man, they did that, to the empathic, implicit mind. Oh, I've forgiven myself for everything that I've done to somebody else. And that's kind of where the journey really begins. To just experiencing that neurospiritual sovereignty, which is the last part that I'll leave you with this, is the neurobiology, the cortisol, the dopamine, oxytocin, epinephrine. Oh man, fight or flight, adrenal excess, and that catecholamine excess can be quieted by engaging your prefrontal cortex and writing over and over and over again. Well, you're like, that's hard. Well, you know what? Is it hard to have life suck? Or would you rather use evidence-based techniques where you don't need me, a doctor, a therapist, a coach, a medication, a community, a partner to believe in yourself? You could do it by yourself. You don't need me. You definitely don't need my process. I'm just the prototype of self-hate to self-love. How'd this guy do it? What did he do?
Amazing. Amazing. Now, thank you for sharing that. One, it takes a lot of bravery to kind of exercise these demons, from the past. So I really appreciate you talking, because I know it's going to resonate with a lot of our folks. And, everybody, probably has somebody with a narcissistic personality disorder near them. And it's very challenging. And I think it's also important to differentiate, like you did. There's narcissistic traits that, let's be honest, we all have that. We're all working with that, but there's like true classic pathology that like gets very challenging. And sometimes I think it is helpful thinking about it like a demon, because it seems like these are the kind of things that are passed quietly, generationally, as like a ghost through all the generations, and I am curious, like how you ended up in Juneau. I'm not very well traveled, but I have been to Juneau, and it's a lovely little town. I mean, it's like
so
a
beautiful
port town, it's kind of the basis of the ferry system on the whole upper northwest there. How did you guys end up there?
Yeah, well, let's track back to the 1800s, and maybe I can use some facts here. At that time, the British ruled India. There's no way around it. And what happens is that my great-grandfather is coming home with that low self-esteem, that low confidence, that self-hatred, being dominated by somebody. And then they dominate them. They develop narcissistic traits. And then my great-grandfather also is just living off of, I don't know, religious things, religious money, bribery, something to that effect. And my dad is sitting there in the veranda reading a Time magazine, and on the 8th page, they got this good-looking guy, and then they're writing these words down in English. He goes to a movie theater, and he sees Amitabh Bachchan, who's an actor in India, speaking well, dressed well. Then another actor in America, dressing well, talking well. He's like, that's where I'm going to go. So he comes to the University of Utah after ranking first in second and third and fourth year in his engineering and civil engineering. And he says, I came to the University of Utah with $5 and one pair of chappal. So he just had a pair of sandals and $5 apparently. But that story was consistent. So yeah, he's very believable too. Very well-spoken, very eloquent. His English has that neutral accent. It's not American, but it's very neutral, like Amitabh Bachchan, the actor. In any event, after that, he must have figured it out. The Alaska pipeline, I'm just using like a phone. He must have called somebody, figured it out, very resourceful, just lived on loans and just repaying loans his whole life. And he finds out that you can get loans in Juneau because of the Alaska pipeline and then the boom. I just came back from Juneau 2 days ago. I was there doing soul searching, one of the most difficult trips, immersion therapy events of my entire life. Mm-hmm. And you're right. He goes to Juneau. I'm imagining my dad getting out of the airplane, mountains coming from the water, that fog, that cinematic appearance, and then the muted light, but still creates this cinema. And then the water there, almost the fjords. Next door, you have the Mendenhall Glacier. But you're thinking, how can I get this loan? And how can I cut the generational curse of money? And then my own protective mechanism is being a narcissist, but he doesn't know that. He's not drinking. He doesn't smoke. He doesn't drug. He doesn't care about food. He wants to dominate. And that's why he came to Juneau. And after my parents divorced, my mom divorced my dad at 7. We had a full household full of people that we're all broke. We're living off of food stamps. My mom was working a couple of jobs, one for the state of Alaska, and then we moved to Seattle at 7. And that's kind of how that happened. And my dad was broke for the rest of our lives. He was just borrowing money, didn't want a job. He did work at Boeing for 3 years. I think out of his entire life, his entire existence, he worked for 3 years at a full-time job. Other than that, he was living off of loans and then filing for bankruptcy twice. So, you get that financial trauma, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, 100%, and I would love to hear about your recent trip back to Juneau too. And what takeaways from me is, it is staggeringly beautiful in nature. There's eagles and there's ravens and there's wolves and there's moose and there's bears everywhere. Like when I was there, I was afraid of the bears
Mhm.
largely. And also, during the pipeline days, when I was tooling around Alaska, I met a lot of boomers, that were there during the glory days, and it was an absolute gold rush.
Yeah.
The the funny quote I remember, I was talking to a guy, Tim. He's like, "Oh yeah, pipeline days. Everyone got a divorce and everyone got audited by the IRS."
Yeah.
Because the money and, the party and that there was like just kind of like a Wild West atmosphere, so to be kind of swooped up on that, it must have been interesting. So tell me a little bit about your last experience with Juneau, kind of what drove you there and what some of the takeaways were for you while you were there.
Yeah, I didn't really know what I'm completing a book, Emotional Freedom, that I'm releasing on my mom's birthday, April 21st. Or I'm not trying to plug that in, but I was thinking to myself, maybe I should go to Juneau and just see what was cooking there because I was only there until the age of 8. I mean, imagine my mom. I went to downtown Juneau. I imagined my mom walking out of the Alaska State Capitol building on a Friday evening at 5 o'clock, muted light, fog everywhere, but not able to appreciate the mountains just sprawling from the water. You know what I only noticed that now, being completely emotionally sober and not eating inflammatory food. Of course, not drinking. I don't do any of that stuff. And you're able to take it all in, but you're not able to take that in because your ex-husband is about to come take your paycheck right when you get paid and go to the bank and take the money. I imagine that. And then I went to my old home. I actually snowboarded there though too. The pictures are so cool. Oh my goodness. The trees, the way they're standing relentlessly and fearlessly without apology, and the lichen coming off of it. And then the bark looks so dense, and the moss just coming off of just coming off of I've never seen that even in the Pacific Northwest. And as I complete snowboarding, I go to my old home where my mom, my dad, my brother were all there. And I'm walking up the street there, eerie feeling, okay? It just feels, but then I look over there, I'm like, wait a second, look at that gangster looking mountain. Like, oh, did I not know that? Did I not know that was right there when I walk out of my home? And then there's two people that are walking up. And this is a little bit embarrassing for me, but I didn't know it was going to happen. And they asked me, hi. They're like, how are you? And I said, good. I was like, do you guys live here? And they said, yeah. And I pointed right there. I said, I used to live there. My whole family was there. Now they passed away. And then I just started bawling. But I didn't think, and I was crying earlier that day too, because everybody was together at that point.
This episode is brought to you by a dangerous idea. It's called reading, specifically the AI for Founders newsletter. 47,000 founders strong now, and it's the good stuff. No top 10 AI tools that will change your life written by someone who doesn't ship product. It's just real breakdowns of what's actually working in AI. Who's raised, who failed, who pivoted, and which founders quietly built $1 million in ARR while everyone else was arguing on X. It's written for people building with AI. Every week you get tactical frameworks, unfair advantages, breakdowns of real companies, and the occasional existential question about whether your startup is intelligent or just well-branded. It's free, it's sharp, it might mildly offend your current workflow. Go to aiforfounders.co and subscribe before your competitor does. Because the only thing worse than being replaced by AI is being replaced by a founder who reads. That's the newsletter at aiforfounders.co. Now back to the show. This episode is brought to you by MoBurst, the AI-first growth engine trusted by iconic startups like Calm, Robinhood, Reddit, Uber, and Google. MoBurst is a digital full-service mobile-first marketing agency that helps companies to scale and become category leaders. Whether you're finding product-market fit or ready to accelerate growth, MoBurst delivers creative, data-driven solutions that help with scale and efficiency and impact. At MoBurst, we're not just guessing what works, we're predicting it. As an AI-first agency, MoBurst uses cutting-edge tools to analyze user behavior, adapt creative in real time, and uncover hidden growth opportunities. The result, marketing that's faster, smarter, and built to convert. From early stage startups to global brands, we've helped hundreds of companies overcome complex challenges, unlock new audiences, and optimize every metric that matters. At Moburst, we believe that creative thinking, advanced technology, and data are the core drivers of success at scale. If you're serious about scaling your business with precision and purpose, it's time to talk to Moburst. Visit moburst.com and let's build something category-defining together.
They were all together. Even though my dad was abusive, my mom was mentally ill, my brother was distant, and I was still running around free. I'm a kid. What do I care about some of these things? I'm just taking it all in. I thought it was normal to be abused when I was young. So I'm taking all of this stuff in, but I snowboarded first. What I like to say, I got high first, before I went there. And I thought about this, but I actually asked AI also. And they were like, yeah, go there first. Go snowboarding first before you go.
Yeah.
I actually
get a win under your belt.
And ChatGPT. So then after that, I'm there and I'm just crying. I'm just like, wow. The emotions are very real, but I'm not there judging whether the situation was good or bad. I'm not trying to understand them. I'm not trying to forgive them. I'm just there. So that's the immersion therapy that I hope that I can inspire somebody else with. And this comes with intense writing over several years. I mean, I would say that I've been at this monastic emotional solitude for almost nearly 10 years now. Well, maybe November 2015, coming on 11 now. 8 years of that, I've been intentionally single. So I've had a lot of time to process all of this. And going there and just seeing it all, just, wow, these guys were working through so much at one point. They were just going through so much. And this is what shapes individuals. Unless you can immerse yourself into them and imagine what they're experiencing. My dad, downtown, bearing off, trying to get a loan. My mom waking up, going to her second job, the Pioneer home in Juneau. My brother playing the violin. What are they experiencing? And I immersed myself into this and wrote myself into this too in Juneau. I might as well just get it over with before something happens later, is the way I view it.
Yeah. Incredible, and going back there and taking it full circle is again, very brave. What happened to you as a kid, like you're talking about, kids don't really know how it's supposed to be. Rather, they're just taking it all in. And it sounded like, from your experience, you took it all in and really compressed it tight. So when you got that release and you go to India, you have a nuclear explosion that comes out in positive ways, being the top of your class, getting, opportunities for college, going to college, becoming a doctor, getting married, all these positive things, but then also like very manic, self-destructive things, addictions and broken relationships and things like that. It seems like all that compression was coming out at you all at once. And, it seems like I would love to know if there was kind of a single moment of clarity within all that, like what began kind of the transformation. And also, a lot of folks will cling on to like an architecture, whether it's religion or it's maybe some kind of a self-help guru. What was it about you that made you kind of really do the investigation yourself and go inside and find some of your own answers and own tactics to kind of pull yourself out?
Yeah, this is very interesting. It's this is where you don't need me, is the way I like to say it affectionately and with inspiration, is that if you can write. Now, I was rapping. Yeah, I'm trying to rap like these guys. Bone Thugs in Harmony. Got to get on the grind, popping the clip of my 9. I'm like, okay, how do raindrops, drop top, put it in the hot box. What do I do? Wait a second. I'm trying to rap. But why am I rapping about low self-esteem and low confidence? I'm not rapping about me smoking up. I don't want anybody to know. I'm not rapping about me doing blow. I'm rapping about me with low self-esteem. Wait a second. Who is this writing this? Tupac would say, I feel his hand on my brain. When I write rhymes, I go blind and let the Lord do his thing. And that's when I just submitted to God and I'm like, all right, fine, let's just keep on writing. And then there was one thing that I wrote one time where low self-esteem and low confidence was my genetic makeup. I had to accept it in order for me to wake up. And I'm like, okay, wait a second. There's something really happening here. Let's try to write that a few more times and see what happens. And that's when it really started beginning. I was still cursing at the time a little bit, but then I stopped slowly. I don't curse anymore. Is that definitely sometimes for effect here and there if I'm rapping an old song, but otherwise I don't curse in any of my rap tracks anymore. And those are some of the things that led to me understanding, and my rap name is Sublime Shine. You have low self-esteem, you hate yourself, let's treat that with sublimation, meaning you already think it's normal. Let's just normalize it and then shine on it. Sublime shine. And then you sublimate that thought. But the exciting part about this mind hygiene business is that there's nothing to do. I don't need to go accomplish something. I don't need people to like me. I do want to keep my job. I don't want patients to complain, but I don't need anything to really happen. And that's when you start accepting and embracing and showing yourself compassion by doing things you don't want to forward your health by writing. So it was the rapping that really got me to where I am today.
Interesting. Well, and it sounds like there was a voice, that came out in rapping that needed to be confessional. It needed to find a place to have a space for it to exist. Is that a product of maybe all the success that you've had and all these other arenas where you're like, there was something in you that needed to feel seen?
It was my mom's life of her suffering. And, the number one achievement that I ever have was taking her out of that psychiatric facility in Creedmoor Hospital in Queens, New York. The day after I graduated residency, I planned it out. And I bought a home for us. And that's when it really began. And I cried for almost 1 full year in that vision room. And I had these vision boards there. And then I would start writing and rapping. And I said, I think I got to make use of her life. You have to understand here that you got to have some type of a higher mission, vision, purpose. It's just not going to work if I was to do it for myself. But I didn't want to hate myself. That was the next thing. I wanted to know what it means to love myself. And I realized that I probably had to do this journey alone. So those were the two. And the third thing is I wanted to keep my jobs. I didn't want to have patients complaining about me. I never said anything bad about patients, but why would they complain? I realized it's because I hated myself. They can experience that frequency. But when I accepted myself, I understood myself and I wrote it down and I forgave myself and I was able to rely on myself and I was believing in myself, not confident. I was believing in myself and my limitations, feeling good about 50 to 60% of the day. Then my patient scores just started skyrocketing. And then I realized I think I got something here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are some of and the journey was long. Dan Martell, one of my heroes and coaches, mentors, would always say the runway is long, but the takeoff is quick. The runway was about 8 to 10 years, but my patient score skyrocketed right away. And they just kept on going up. So I realized that I'm doing the right thing. Or the neurospiritual frequency is what I call it. The neurospiritual sovereign frequency.
Yeah, I love it. I want to get into that, but one thing, it kind of this pivot point here. I think one of the characteristics of narcissistic personality attributes that people go through, and I think it's the kind of normal, because as kids, of course, we're going to be concerned about ourselves, and I think what happens is you'll start to look at the world like, why is this happening to me? Why is that happening to me? Everything feels reactionary, like the world should bow. And then at some point, you take kind of extreme responsibility and accountability of like, okay, all of these things have happened to me. Some of it wasn't my fault, but also where am I accountable and how do I show up? And what it sounds like with you, what really kind of spawned a lot of this is like some pretty intense rigor and discipline. So I would love to hear a little bit about that and maybe kind of going into, mind hygiene and these other products, because like you're saying, the runway is long, which is to kind of say like, hey man, you want to get things right with your mind. You got to get stuff right spiritually. You got to get stuff right physically. You got to get your diet correct. You got to clean up your act is how, my grandfather would say it. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, what you're calling is structural density, where when you look in this drawer, it's as clean as the fridge and it's as clean as your mind and your body. That's what I like to call structural density, where you're just not confused about anything. You're just not worried and then your Google Docs are straight. All your files are labeled. You only have one tab open at a time. When you can operate with that, you just don't need anybody. So that's just one high level thought of this. But I'm standing in Alabama, looking outside, warm weather. I'm thinking to myself, Am I just that stupid doctor forever? Am I just going to be put down for the rest of my life? Am I going to always have bad patient scores? Am I going to lose my job? As I'm in a full-blown cocaine-induced manic episode and I'm going into a dual diagnosis rehab center in, where was it? Warrior, Alabama. And I was there for 3 months. They were going to graduate me in 11 weeks, but they said, no, you got to stay 1 more week. And there you got a lot of people, correct? Doctors, you got engineers, you got pilots, people who apparently, you guys can communicate together, higher degrees, that type of thing. And it just kind of felt normal at that moment. I just felt I was just stupid amongst everybody else, although I didn't think that they were stupid. I was just saying, I'm stupid, I'm messed up, everybody must be too, at least I'm not alone. And there were doctors that were there who were in their 50s, who had a couple DUIs or something, stuff like that. So at least I was able to normalize this business. And then I thought to myself, look, I cannot focus on anybody else. I got to write my way out of this. This is the only way I can do it. Let's go to therapy. Let's get some coaches. Let's figure out a way to write our way out of this. Because I understood that I can, at that moment, I was still in the process of developing self-love. I would say if somebody wants to go from self-hate to self-love and you want to do it integrated into society, it may take about 5 to 7 years. But you might be able to expedite that in a couple of years if you're completely emotionally alone. I think you can probably expedite that process. But in this case, I might have been about 3 years, even though I was doing drugs and alcohol, I was still writing about all of this. And I knew I had to figure it out. And I knew I could only focus on myself. No doctors, no patients, no medical field, no dad, no mom, nobody. I'm isolated in the middle of the ocean. I got to figure out how to get back to shore. And I thought that writing, going to therapy was the only way out. And that's where the mind hygiene developed, where I just realized I can depend on myself. Maybe for your viewers, you can see here, these are push-ups, where I'm constantly doing writing still. And this is just to keep it going, Yeah. Yeah, this is just to make sure that I'm afloat. And these I write probably sometimes twice a day, but usually about 5 times a week. And I have dry erase board. I have a big easel pad there. Now, I'm constantly writing. And, mind hygiene is you just accept it, not fix it. Embrace it, not control it. Whatever event is there, you figure out a way to forgive yourself. You have that empathy. You don't have things renting space in your head. You're not worried about anybody else. And then you can reach those heights. You can, what I call type 1 civilization of the mind, where you have structural density all around.
Yeah, I'd love to take a deeper dive into exactly what you do when you're writing. Are you still writing raps? Is that part of it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I recently wrote, and I have a bunch of rap stuff coming out. There's one rap that so the rap has evolved now. Now I practice identity alchemy like a daily prescription, turning on my past confusion into sovereign intuition. My oxytocin rises from self-connection while my cortisol drops with introspection. People blow me off, cool, that's fine, but their nervous system ain't consecrated like mine. Some are sucking limbic bribes, others searching for signs, but that dopamine devotion keeps me aligned.
Bars.
Yeah, when you think about this, so the dopamine devotion is one of my favorites, where if I like it, I'll delay it for as long as I can, but I'm not going to say no. I don't know what that looks like anymore. So that's writing. That's one part of the writing is the raps. So I'm constantly writing raps. Usually I'm writing the ACEs framework, which is you have an event, accept your awareness around it, be compassionate by doing something you don't want to, empathize, understand that you may need to alchemize this, meaning turn it into purpose, and then soften the process. Don't make it seem like it's hard. So that's what the core gist of it is ACE is your life instead of face is your life, which is fixing your emotions. A is anger if you overcome. C is controlling your mind. I do not believe in this emotional regulation business. I don't know about that. But if it works for somebody, don't listen to me, And then but blocking things out, not my style. Being strong and positive and negative is not my style. So I just don't do that. And that allows me to just focus on myself. And as long as I'm doing it 1 second at a time, I'm not unhappy, And then usually it'll extend probably to about 10 minutes, sometimes 30, sometimes 90, depending on how I feel. But I'm constant. If I have some problem, I'm like, man, do I got to go right now? All right, fine. Let's just get it over with.
Yeah. And talk about why actually writing it, because when you held it up for the folks who listen to the podcast, it's written. It's not like a Notion document. Like it's pen to paper.
Yeah, there's a mind hygiene study that was conducted for 4 years, a non-IRB retrospective observational study on over 4,000 patients, where they did 1 to 90-second writing reflections every 90 minutes for 90 days. And some of them may not have completed it every 90 minutes, but for those that did, what it showcased was that we're trying to figure out the domains of health here, which is spiritual health. What's your mission? My mission: feed the poor, purify their water, help those in emotional isolation, believe in themselves. Mind health, well, are you aware and compassionate? And then physical health, are you eating inflammatory foods? Financial health, are you consecrating your finances? Meaning, are you surrendering them to a higher purpose, whatever that looks like? Kids, family, 401k, are you surrendering it? And then, of course, time and executional health. Are you doing one thing at a time, one tab open? And are you executing things when you don't want to? And what happens here is that reduces the cortisol, the stress hormone. And writing, there's multiple studies that showcase that writing will increase immune function, engages the prefrontal cortex, hand to paper, decreases activity on the amygdala, and that's the emotional brain, and will also help you stabilize your serotonin, which is like taking a drug, smoking up, eating something. You're going to feel good about 30% of the time when you're writing.
Yeah.
And it's for free. You don't need anything. And if you do it enough, I would say you probably will feel good at a high level for about 60 to 70% of the day, which I feel is a very high level with no external validation. So nobody's saying that you're good. Nobody's saying that you got this. Oh, I believe in you though. You're a good person. Stay strong, bro. You got this.
Creative and physical outputs, that high is the best. You know, it really is. It's hard because it's hard. You know, like you have a margarita, you feel great, but that's easy. You know, it's harder to get off your butt and go do hot yoga for an hour, or to sit down and write when you don't want to. You know, it's hard, but you pass through that, boy, and it does feel good. Talk a little bit about the intentional celibacy, or intentionally single, how that kind of played a role in this transformation.
Yeah, I was tired of the narcissistic traits: blaming, complaining, talking bad, being condescending. My dad said I'm stupid. I'm calling other people stupid. How dare I do that? Who am I to do that? I said, no way. I'm not going to displace my narcissistic fears on somebody else. And that's when it initially began. And I was single for about, maybe 5 years. I was dating occasionally here and there, but never was I in a relationship, nor did I have any intention. It was more so just to get attention and just to make sure that I'm still have some market value of some sort. But I knew that I was not going to hurt another person with anything. I don't care what it looked like. There was no cursing at them, no cursing at myself, no claiming that I'm stupid and then calling other people dumb to make myself feel better. Forget it. I said no. And that's when it first started. And then there was somebody I worked with, beautiful person inside and out. And I was hesitant with her too. She saw me through everything. She saw me through my manic episode. She helped me through it. And, it was almost a period of several months where we were just talking, but I knew her for almost 2 years before we started dating. And then we dated, and I just got sober. I was working through some challenges. I said, still not maybe the right time. And then I dated again, somebody for about 1.5 years, which still maybe was the right time, but then we were at different places in our lives. So for 3 years out of this, since November of 2015, I was in a relationship, but still I refused to depend on anybody emotionally. Meaning, hey, do you think that I'm doing good? Do you think that I'm fine? You think I'm good? Maybe I might ask that sometimes, but then I would go to dialectical behavioral therapy and write it down. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I was intentionally single during the other times, long periods of time where I didn't date at all. And then the dating became more of, am I still have market value?
Yeah.
Yeah, but then I did.
Is that what you call having abs? Because you're absolutely shredded now.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Yeah. Now it's interesting. Okay. So this is not something that I really like to talk about. I really don't like to talk about this, but maybe this is the first time in my whole life that I'll express it. Is how you talk about this magnetism, you talk about, hey, you know what? When you have a mission, when you don't care, when you're not expecting it, when you develop yourself, when you align with that frequency and you manifest it and you live that life, people will come towards you. No, actually, you know what? Everybody's going to leave. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. They're all gone, man. And then you have what I call the sovereign paradox identity, where you've developed yourself, you've quit everything, you got a six pack. And I promise you, I was never going for that six pack. I never wanted it. It just happened. This is what I'm saying, right? One day you're just going to love yourself. You should not be going for that. And then and then I have nothing bad to say. I've trained myself to be a speaker. So there's all kinds of things that I've done, but still I don't feel I'm good enough. No external validation, and people have ghosted you. They're gone. You say something about your mission, gone. But the YouTube video says that that's what's going to draw you to the next person. They say that that's magnetism. Nope. Peace out, man. They're going to be gone. And you know what? I'm probably not the first one to express this. I'm sure David Goggins would corroborate this. He would say, look, the way I view it, Ryan, is that I think about the mountaineer. There was one mountaineer that I was going to date. It's like, you know what? I'm not about to go up there in that altitude, acclimatize, eat some stuff, poop in the mountain, and then have to clean it up. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to pay that altitude tax. And that's the same thing with personal development. People they want to say you're emotionally available. They want to say I'm emotionally intelligent, but they don't want to write it down and accept who they are and then consecrate their resentments. Nobody wants to do it. Okay. So forget about it. Don't listen to me. Just live your life. That's what I say. Unless you want to just be alone.
Yeah. Incredible. So we'll bring you all the way up to speed where you are now. Structural density is on point. What my son would say, you're locked in. So
Yeah.
you have a very big mission and a path to get there. So let's talk about the change that you would like to enact with the world. What this structural density, kind of what foundation that is provided to get you to where you're going. Where are you going next?
Yeah, February 2nd, 2021, 3:36 p.m., I saw my mom take her last breath, and I promised her, I said, I'm going to do something. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to help these people in Haiti, and I'll start there. And I've been to Haiti multiple times. Various reasons I haven't been back recently because of I don't want to get into it, but it's not the easiest place to go to at this moment. But I'm absolutely determined to go there and start there first to purify water and to do medical mission work in Syria, Ukraine. And my speaking fees, the coaching, the YouTube revenue, book sales, I'm going to donate to feeding the poor, purifying their water, starting the spark for humanity to not resent themselves, to consecrate their resentments, to alchemize their past, to serve that higher purpose, to get to that type 1 civilization where we harness everything on earth to serve. If nobody has anything bad to say about themselves, I would argue that it's impossible to say something bad about somebody else. And that will get us closer to whatever it is humanity is going to do next, whether we're going to become an interplanetary species, whether we're going to be on Moon, or whether we're going to occupy Mars. Don't you want to be traveling to Mars without resentment and depending on inflammatory food?
Yeah.
You might as well try to understand who you are way before you do that. And I think that should be part of curriculum, whether it's mine or somebody else's, it don't matter. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, and serving my mom's life, my dad's life, and my brother's to serve that higher purpose. And donate my speaking fee right now. I'm donating 70% of it. And then my book sales, I'm going to donate 30% of it to domestic violence shelters, to child abuse victims, so we can try to help them forgive themselves first. And I know that sounds weird, but they did that to me. That's it. That's the trouble. We cannot focus on anybody for several years. And with my dad, I just have deep empathy for him now. I never tried to forgive him, but I understand why he did what he did. And generationally, I've written it all down. So that's just kind of one thought.
It's beautiful, man. Kind of wrapping up a little bit, I have a few more questions. The first being like where you are now with structural density. If you could go back and talk to yourself kind of at those low moments, what would you say?
Yeah, what I would tell my younger self is just stay here for as long as you need to. Don't worry about it. Worry is a bad word. Accept it and write it down. You might be able to get there a couple of seconds quicker, but just live there because your life is meant to do something for somebody else. This is not your plan. This is God's plan, and you're involved in it. Just accept it. Enjoy whatever you can while you can, and just surrender to your higher purpose.
Amazing.
But I wouldn't change anything. There's no way I could have been the person I am now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is your Mount Rushmore of greatest rappers of all time?
Oh, it's gonna be Eminem. Yeah. Tupac. Actually, you know what? Tupac, I would say Tupac first, and then Eminem, and NF, Mixtape Chameleonaire that doesn't curse, and then T.I.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a sample across the entire country. I like that list.
And August Alsina, we got to put him in there too. Although he sings, they've been very influential in my life. And flow-wise, it would be Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Oh, man.
And Migos as well. They got some serious flows.
Dude, Bone Thugs, like you listen to them and like how really like sophisticated and intertwined the raps and the melodies are. I mean, they're like using Mixolydian scales a lot of times with their raps and like doing such cool thing. This conversation for some reason is like, what's that Nas song? Whose World Is This? I'm just getting this massive correlation, I write in my book of rhymes, all my words past the margin.
Yeah.
Mechanical movements. I don't know why. What about Nas? You like Nas?
Nas, I've never really listened to some of the East Coast stuff. More so, it was Tupac, Sibo, Brother Lynch Hung, and then as we started, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg. I never really listened to Jay-Z. I'm looking over at the East Coast map here. I didn't really listen to them. I never, even still now, I don't have anything, good or bad to say about, but, I just never.
Yeah. Those are deep cuts too, and that's some gangster stuff. What about like Far Side? Those kind of like backpack West Coast guys.
No. Yeah. It was more so something like Bone Thugs and Harmony. Let's see here. I gotta give it on up to the Glock. Better pop, better jerk tots. Go the bone at me, never know how so, and creeping up out of the Ziploc. So those are just the lyrics are just right there.
Yeah. It's the best.
Yeah.
Druva, this has been absolutely incredible. If people want to learn more, you can go to druvamd.com. I'm going to spell that out for you. DHRUVAMD.com. Druva's available for speaking engagements, assuming that time is correct. Druva, where's the best place for people to connect with you online, personally?
Yeah, it would be getting to my email list, for where you believe in yourself every second. And you can also download a free mind hygiene guide on my YouTube, where you can kind of understand the process and how you can probably develop your own technique of writing if you find value in it, and then inspire somebody else. So you can go onto my YouTube, which is at Druva Guler MD, and then you can download the mind hygiene PDF, or you can join the email list on druvamd.com, which is probably the best way to connect with me.
Incredible. And I'll link all that up in the show notes. So if you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to it, you can see it down in the show notes. Definitely connect. This has given me a lot of inspiration to go write. I go through phases of writing. Every time I write, I grab a new book. And so I've got like 17 books with like 3 pages in it. But
yeah,
I'm gonna pick up the pen and do that. Druva, thank you so much for joining me and telling this incredible story.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan, for having me, and what you do for others and your energy. When I first met you, I've said this to you, and I know it'll happen. At some point, somewhere in the world, we're going to be sitting down. I'm going to be like, we donated this, we did this, and we accomplished this, and it's going to happen. I can just feel it, and you're so inspirational, and you have the structural density behind you as well, put together. You got the hair, the glasses, of course, that's just one part of it, and then the clean outside, and just the way your setup is and what you do for others is also remarkable. And to be honest with you, and I have learned a lot from doctors, but I worked in a prison as a prison doctor. I learned from them. I learned from other coaches who have had life experiences, who help other people scale like you do. So I just want to acknowledge that I appreciate what you do for others. And I hope that your audience will say, okay, well, we can elevate AI this quickly by doing this.
Yeah.
And they've inspired from our stories.
You know, Druva, it's very hard for me to take compliments, so I'll just say thank you. I appreciate that. And I would love to be on a beach somewhere sitting next to you after we just did some big philanthropic project.
Yeah, for sure.
A great vision. I appreciate it. Druva, thank you so much. Great to see you again.
Okay, take care, Ryan.
You are about to spend anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000 on your kid's college education. And that's not a small bet. And right now, there's a very real chance that they graduate and can't find a job, not because they weren't smart enough, not because they didn't work hard enough, but because the job market changed and nobody told them. Employers are hiring AI native candidates, people who don't just know their field, but know how to work with AI at a professional level. And most colleges are not teaching this, not even close. AI-nativestudent.com is the program that fills that gap. It takes high school and college students and teaches them how to actually think and work with AI the way top companies expect on day one. So your investment in their degree actually pays off. You're already paying for tuition, housing, textbooks. This is the one thing that actually makes it all worth it. Go to AI-nativestudent.com because a diploma is a starting point. Being AI native is what gets them hired. That's AI-nativestudent.com.